Hello, everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of Conversations with author Rajesh Talwar with us. And today we are going to talk about the book Harvard, Oxford, and Cambridge: The Past, Present, and Future of Excellence in Education. So, Rajesh, the title is really interesting. So, when is the book, going to be published?
Thanks, Ananya. I thought in these short videos of each university that I've been to, among the three which form the title of the book, I could just give you a 5 minute, preview so that readers can also get an idea about what this book is about. Much in advance, I should add, because the book will only get published around the middle of next year.
So, Rajesh, normally your books come out really soon. So, why is this book particularly taking longer?
Thanks, Ananya. Actually, the thing is that although I have studied in many universities for shorter and longer durations, uh, including Delhi University, Harvard, Oxford, Cambridge, Nottingham, SOAS, London School of Journalism, all kinds of places. And I've taught also in university in Jamia Millia Islamia for 3 years, in Delhi University for 3 years. But at the same time, haven't worked really in the field of education. So it has been a bit of a challenge for me to write this book. And I plan to consult various deans, professors from all the places I studied at to get their inputs because, of course, it's easier relatively to talk about my experiences in these three universities, but to write about the past, present, and future of excellence in education, I need to get everything right.
Okay, Rajesh. So, this is a short interview. So, I just want to know about your experience in Harvard. How was it? What was so special about it?
Thanks, Ananya. At Harvard, I went to do a course in negotiation, mastering negotiation. That was the course. I went on behalf of the UN. I've been working for the UN in peacekeeping missions, as you know, for many years. And it was a fascinating course. I dealt with the commercial aspects of negotiation, but also how you negotiate in peacekeeping areas, which was part of the UN mandate in Afghanistan and in other places. I have to say that the course itself was very interesting, but just to give you an idea about what's special about Harvard is that once the course finished, once our class is finished for the day, we would have various options. There would be Professor Joseph Nye, who taught many famous people, including Ban Ki-moon. He would be giving a talk at the Harvard Kennedy Center. You'd have the Iraqi defense minister giving a talk somewhere else. You'd have the Prime Minister of Finland giving a talk in another school. You'd have the newest billionaire giving a talk at Harvard Business School. So you had these choices at the end of the day, where to go. Did you want to just go to a pub and catch up with your friends? Or did you want to listen to these guys and then go? Obviously, you wanted to go and listen to one of these famous people, one of these brilliant people talk. And it was like this every day. So you were really spoiled for choice. And now my course was not that long, but can you imagine if you are there for a year, every day you are listening to these kind of people speaking, giving their views, sharing their life experiences. At the end of a year, at the end of 2 years, at the end of 3 years, you are enriched by what you studied at Harvard, but you're also enriched by the encounters. And these talks, you have freewheeling discussions. You can raise up your hand and ask a question. And mind you, all these people also are talking about other influential people. To give you an example, when I attended the talk given by Professor Joseph Nye, he was saying, last week I was with the Clintons and I was talking to Bill about X, Y, and Z. So I would say this is a very special part of the Harvard experience.
Okay, Rajesh. So, given that we don't have much time left, I will, quickly ask you another question. Um, do you think that there was something else, something different and unique in Harvard as compared to the other universities that you have studied at?
Yes, well, there isn't too much time to go into many things, but let me just mention one more thing, which is, I think, very significant, and that is that Harvard keeps in touch with you much more than, say, Oxford and Cambridge do. And Harvard also carries so much influence and power that you get connected to the alumni network to other important people. So I went, for example, for a short course at Harvard. But 3 months down the line, I was contacted by a German gentleman who said, Rajesh, would you want to be part of the Young Leaders Forum? We are going to be discussing global issues in 4 continents. There'll be people from China, Russia, the United States, and 2 other countries. And I've seen your background. You're an alumni. Uh, can we hope that you will join? So, as a matter of fact, I said I can't join because I'm sorry, but I'm not really in the bracket of young leader anymore. And besides, my commitments with the United Nations may not allow me to travel so frequently. It will be too much juggling involved. So then this gentleman wrote back and said, well, thank you very much. Uh, if you can't join, can you recommend somebody else from India? So I was a bit taken aback. I did recommend somebody else, uh, and that person joined. Now, but I'm giving you this as an example of how the alumni, being an alumni of Harvard, it creates great opportunities for you in the future. I'll give you an example of another friend of mine who had been to Harvard to do his doctorate in law. He came back to Delhi University and there he came back to India to practice, and his practice was not going very well. Then Harvard started a program of collaboration with Delhi University. And who will they go to but to an alumni? And, that's the second very big advantage, that just the fact that you are from Harvard, it works to your advantage through the alumni network. People get in touch with you. You have opportunities which you might not have got from another university.
So, Rajesh, can you tell us a bit about your experience there and what did you study at Oxford?
Uh, Thanks, Ananya. Oxford University, I went for a course actually which lasted for several weeks. The course was titled Forced Migration, but between those rather dull sounding words, there was a lot of exciting stuff dealing with human rights, refugee rights, disappearing islands, indigenous people, and sex trafficking. So lots of interesting, challenging topics to deal with. And it went over several weeks. So we had time to bond with the other students, to engage more fully with the professors and other students at the university.
All right, Rajesh. So, a lot of students might be really interested in knowing about your accommodation at Oxford. So, what was it like? How was your experience there? Could you share that with us?
Thanks, Ananya. Well, I studied at Wadham College, and it took us quite some time. I took a cab from London. It took us quite some time to find the college because you have all these ancient buildings there. So I think they didn't want to spoil the ambience by putting too modern looking signs. So we went back and forth. And then we found the college. And then a nice lady from the porter's lodge, she had to offer to help me with my luggage. And I thought, well, I can carry this stuff upstairs or wherever myself. But it was very good that she offered because the staircase was really narrow and we had to climb 3 stories to reach a very, very small room. It was half the size of my accommodation at Harvard, although it was bigger than what I had in Hindu College, University of Delhi. Interiors were very nice, but the lady explained to me that the structure is so old that they can't do very much because it's 16th century. So in terms of modern conveniences, maybe the accommodation is not great, but in terms of ambience, you probably give it close to 100%. It's not every day that you get to live for several weeks in a 16th century edifice, or to sit in a dining hall, which is, you have all these ancients, their portraits looking down on you. So I would say maybe 90 marks out of 100 for ambience. I'm not sure the students whom you mentioned, whether they will value ambience more than physical convenience. That's up to them.
All right, Rajesh. So, I guess that was really great that you got to live in such a nice ambience. So, Rajesh, when you compare Harvard with Oxford and Cambridge, what are your conclusions? I mean, how would you compare Harvard with the other two universities?
Good question, Ananya, because Harvard, of course, is part of the American system, and Cambridge and Oxford part of the English system. Uh, I think your question may be more focused on the teaching. I have to say that the Americans, they have a greater understanding of the fact that somebody who wrote an outstanding piece of research might not necessarily be the best person to teach it. So, Ananya, you might do some great research in physics and come up with a new theory, but it's not necessary that you can be the best person to explain that to students. So the Americans seem to understand that better than the English. Not that the English don't speak well, they also speak very well. But there is a greater emphasis in American universities on grabbing the interest of the student, of being a good performer. I think that would be one difference. So as I was saying, Ananya, that the American system is more informal. You'll have the Harvard profs who will be teaching in a more easy to understand style. And you can see this reflected in the books also. So you have lots of international bestsellers written by Harvard professors, Harvard scholars, which will grab a wider readership because of the way they've been written. So Oxford and Cambridge, by contrast, they are more scholarly. You could say that sometimes they might have the edge, the British universities, in terms of having more rigorous research. But the American system is no less rigorous in a way. So purely on performance, that the Americans understand better that the teacher needs also to be a bit of a performer. I would say that Harvard has a slight edge.
Okay, Rajesh. So, when we talked about Harvard, you told us that Harvard has a lot of prominent speakers almost every day. So, is it the same with Oxford?
Not to that extent, Ananya. Uh, there was a restaurant we used to visit, an Indian restaurant actually, which was full of photographs of prime ministers, presidents who had come to Oxford University to give a talk, and then they had come and eaten at the same restaurant. But I would say on a daily basis, you did not have so many opportunities of having excellent speakers. Uh, you have to remember that the American universities are far richer than the British universities. So even the lower grade, relatively speaking, American universities, they have a lot of money. So sometimes they offered Oxford an opportunity to collaborate. Oxford has the bigger university, a bigger reputation in terms of a university, but the American university, it could be something like the Southern Methodist University. They are just bringing money to the table. The British realize this. So it's a trade-off. Uh, yes, the British universities, the English universities are no longer uh, the richest universities in the world. It's the Americans who are the richest.
Talk about Rajesh's experience at Cambridge. So, Rajesh, can you tell us a bit about that?
Thanks, Ananya. Uh, at Harvard, I studied negotiation. In Oxford, I studied forced migration. And in Cambridge, I went to attend a course on law and leadership at the Judge Business School. So it was basically legal people. As you know, I have a legal background, apart from working in peacekeeping. And it was a fascinating course, very interesting. And I found that Cambridge has a special appeal compared to Oxford. If you compare the two universities, Oxford is more of a commercial place. Uh, there's a big shopping center, a shopping village called Bester or Bicester, for which you can catch a train. Uh, Cambridge is more quaint, it's more old world, it's more of a university town. So, depending on what you prefer, if you prefer a total university town, a bit desolate, a bit quaint, very ancient looking, then it would be Cambridge. But if you prefer to be in the thick of things, to have a bit of activity going around, then it's Oxford.
All right, Rajesh. So, given a choice to, choose to study at Oxford or Cambridge, which university would you choose?
Well, Ananya, it would actually depend on the subject because Oxford is better known for teaching and research in the humanities, whereas Cambridge is better known for the sciences. So if you were studying physics, chemistry, engineering, you should head for Cambridge. And if you are planning instead to study politics, law, literature, then Oxford would make a better bet. This is not to say, of course, that you don't have great scientists at the University of Oxford, or that you don't have poets and artists from the University of Cambridge. It's just a matter of slightly relative advantage. This is how the universities are known. So the first point is, of course, the issue of a physical ambience. And the second issue is rather more relevant, which is what is the subject you wish to study.
All right, Rajesh. So, all of these are esteemed and reputed universities. But do you think there is anything that could be improved in Oxford or even Cambridge?
Absolutely, Ananya. That's a very good question. There's always scope for improvement. One should not get too overawed by the of a university, reputation of a university. Off the top of my head, I can think that Oxford and Cambridge, they have a rivalry. It's very good. It's a healthy rivalry. But sometimes a professor in Oxford was sharing with me that sometimes they've set up collaboration projects with Cambridge, but they've fallen through because of this very rivalry. So despite the two universities not being so far from each other, there is not even a train link which directly connects them to. So there would be more cross-fertilization, more exchange of ideas. You have two of the greatest universities, but the rivalry seems to be trumping the desire for collaboration in the case of Harvard and Cambridge, in the case of Oxford and Cambridge, excuse me. So you asked for room for improvement. I think this is something they could probably improve on.
All right, Rajesh. So your book has an interesting subtitle, The Past, Present, and Future of Excellence in Education. So, these universities, do they come in the past area, the present, or, the future? What is this, categorization that you think it comes under the universities?
Well, excellent question. And of course, the central theme of the book is more to do with the subtitle. Uh, as far as I'm concerned, and as far as the book's theme is concerned, Harvard, Oxford, and university are the present continuum. You have great universities such as Nalanda University uh, and other great ancient Indian universities, universities in Europe, universities in China, which will form part of the great institutions that formed the past in excellence in education. And my thesis in this book is that excellence in university education is slowly but inevitably perhaps shifting to Asia. And within Asia, of course, it's the two giants, India and China, who will be forerunners. Uh, and I discuss this competition. I discuss also the great potential which India has, potential for huge success in the field of higher education, but also we could just do a very bad crash landing. And I discuss what needs to be done to give us that ascendancy. So that's part of the theme of the book. But this is not going to happen immediately. So I would say Harvard, Oxford, and Cambridge are part of the present continuum, but the future may be different. The future can be different.
All right, so this brings us to the end of the series where we talked about Harvard, Oxford, and Cambridge, and I hope that the viewers they enjoyed this series because we got to know so much about these universities. And thank you so much, Rajesh, for sharing your experiences and insights with us.
Thanks so much, Ananya. I may not have been as articulate as I would have wished to be. There are so many other things I would want to share, but maybe thanks.